because I was in that deep depression, and my husband said, and I wasn't happy at work because it had gone from caring for people to be a lot about the paperwork and targets. And I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. I want to help people. And that was part of the depression I suffered.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the KTS Success Factor podcast for women, where we talk about challenges senior female leaders face in being happy and successful at work. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah E. Brown. My guest today is Sarah Dawkins. She is a holistic health and healing coach, a keynote speaker, the author of Heal Yourself, which we're going to be talking about today, a multi-award-winning entrepreneur, and previously she was a registered nurse for 20 years. She has extensive experience in health and wellness, gained from naturally self-healing, a multitude of health issues, and from her work as a registered nurse. Sarah supports clients to find and heal the root cause of their health problems, thereby improving their health and ultimately their lives. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. So tell me a bit about being a registered nurse and why you were no longer doing that.
My mum was a nurse. I liked the idea of what she did, helping people at their vulnerable times. So I chose to be a nurse too, raised in that medical model, and believed that, medicine and the doctors and the hospitals healed us. So I just naturally went through that route and loved what I did until one day somebody said to me, I questioned my choice of pharmaceuticals at home. I'm like, well, why would you question that? Because that's what is the normal thing to do. When you're sick, you take a pill and you get better. And that was my whole belief system. So I enjoyed my time as a nurse until that question. And then I started doing some research and found out how well our body can heal us. When we support it, it will heal us more efficiently. So then I started to become really at odds with what I was doing in the daytime as a nurse. And I'd started my own self-healing journey without pharmaceuticals. And I became so conflicted with the two different elements of health and wellness.
And so what were you healing yourself from?
So I started out with eczema, psoriasis, and candida. And then I went on to heal chronic pain. And then I finally end up with depression with suicidal thoughts, an underactive thyroid, and I burnt out my adrenal glands and dropped my blood pressure down seriously low, where it stayed for several years. And I healed all of that without pharmaceuticals.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. How long did that take?
My adrenals took the longest because it was a very, very slow process, but a period of years. Really, the eczema, psoriasis, and acid reflux went quite quickly when I changed what I was eating and stopped eating gluten and dairy. That had a huge impact on my symptoms. But I started doing a bit more exercise. And it was when I finally decided to train as a coach to try and help other people because I'd seen myself healing. We did an emotional healing, and the teacher took us inside ourselves to find our body wisdom, to find a trauma, a pain, a hurt, understand it and heal it. And that's when I realized that healing wasn't just physical, change your diet, do more exercise, hydrate. It was, we had to look at what we thought about health and wellness and illness and heal our past, essentially, heal those things that we'd took down inside of us and hoped we never had to deal with again.
So your journey for self-healing took how long? You said years?
Years, because I healed my psoriasis, the eczema, and the acid reflux first in a matter of about a month. I healed those. And then I developed candida, and that took me several months. And then I went into a deep, dark depression. Oh, previous to that, sorry, I had joint pains, which I saw a chiropractor for. A frozen shoulder one year, which he healed, and then a frozen shoulder the following year, which he healed through chiropractic manipulation and acupuncture. And then I went on to develop the depression with suicidal thoughts, which the suicidal thoughts stayed with me a couple of months, but the depression stayed with me for 3 years because I didn't know how I was going to heal that. But I knew it wasn't going to be with pharmaceuticals. As I was healing the depression, I also healed my thyroid. My adrenal glands took possibly a bit longer than the 3 years to heal the depression because I didn't know what I was doing at the time because I wasn't thinking logically and rationally with the depression. So that did take quite a while. That said, I did heal those. So it's we can heal.
And how did you learn all of this stuff? How did you learn what works and what doesn't work?
I did a lot of research online. When I was questioned by a nurse colleague, that's when I started my researching. And every night I was on the internet researching, reading journals and magazines and articles and looking at how I could implement some of those changes myself. But as I said, it wasn't until I decided to train to be a coach and leave nursing so that I could help other people to heal themselves that I realized we needed to do that emotional healing and heal our past.
And tell me about the decision process you went through to leave your job as a registered nurse and start up a coaching practice, because that's a big change.
Massive, because I was in that deep depression and my husband said, and I wasn't happy at work because it had gone from caring for people to be a lot about the paperwork and targets. And I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. I want to help people. And that was part of the depression I suffered. And my husband said, why don't you start a business? And I'm like, I've never run a business. I have no idea. But the university where I did my master's degree were also running a graduate entrepreneurship program. So they ran classes to teach people how to run a business and what running a business entails. So that's how I stepped into setting up my own business.
Wow. Well, it's a big change. It takes courage. So were there elements of your previous job that you think contributed to making you sick?
Yes, there was a lot of stress. And that obviously played into making me sick. Absolutely.
So that's one of the things I am always telling the women that I'm coaching and training is a job can make you sick. So pay attention to what you're actually feeling. So you've written a book called Heal Yourself. Tell me about why you wanted to write a book.
As I was healing the depression, I wanted to help other people to understand that we can heal depression naturally, because obviously raised in the medical model, taking pills all my life, believing that was normal. I'm like, wow, I've had this breakthrough. I want to tell the world about it. So I started writing just about the depression and what I was doing and how I was healing it. And a little voice in my head said, who are you? You're not an author and you're only going to reach a certain amount of people and it's only depression. And self-doubt crept in and I put that book away on my computer for 5 years because I didn't know what to do with it. Woke up one day and I had this voice in my head, you've got to write this book, you've got to get other people on board. So I pulled it back out of my computer. I reached out on social media. Some people came back to me with different types of diseases and their own stories. And I wanted other stories. So I went looking for people on the internet who'd healed different conditions, found all sorts of different people and said, look, I'm writing this book. I want to help people to help themselves and to see that we can heal ourselves, and not just from the things that I've healed, but our whole gambit of different conditions. So 74 people came back to me with their own healing journeys from things that doctors say we can't heal, like cancer and ALS, as motor neuron, as we call it in the UK, multiple sclerosis and autoimmune and chemical sensitivities and allergies and asthma and stroke and all these different things that we're told we can't heal. I've got people healing them without pharmaceuticals.
Wow. And so you're telling all of these stories in your book.
Yes, I am.
Do you have a sample? You told us a little bit about your healing journey, but how about giving us a sample of somebody else's story? Hi, this is Sarah Brown again. the host of the KTS Success Factor podcast for women. I hope you are enjoying this episode and gaining some tips and inspiration on how you can be happier, more successful, and experience less stress at work. If you would like to learn more about how you can take control of your career and do it your way, visit saraebrown.com. There you will be able to download a free chapter from my book, Let Your Personality Be Your Career Guide. It contains information and exercises on how you can identify your unique interests, strengths, and needs, and translate that into career goals that are just right for you. Now back to this informative episode.
Sure. In chapter 44, a gentleman called Kim Cherry healed ALS, or Lou Gehrig disease, it's also known as, or motor neurone in the UK. And basically, before he got his diagnosis of ALS, he was diagnosed with heart disease and underwent heart surgery. Then he had diagnosis for asthma, emphysema, and COPD. And eventually he was diagnosed with ALS. He decided he didn't want to accept the diagnosis or the medication for ALS. And he ended the relationships with any of his friends that thought he couldn't heal, that were negative towards his beliefs that he could heal. And the doctors that said he couldn't heal, he severed all of those relationships and found a different doctor who believed in him and said he could heal, and just kept close ties with friends who said and believed that he could heal. He had testing by the doctor, and it showed mercury poisoning, fungus, and a gluten sensitivity. So he was given protocols to follow. He took ozone therapy and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Issue was staying hydrated because of his swallowing problems, but he managed to drink fizzy water, he said, which toned up his throat. He changed his diet to eat healthy. He took some supplements, and he changed all the toxic products in his home, his cleaning products, his laundry products, his personal products, and chose natural. And within a few months, he was back playing golf again, albeit he had to use a golf buggy, but his symptoms had dramatically reduced and he had quality of life again.
Amazing. What an inspiring story that is.
Isn't it?
And it happened within just a period of many months, you said.
I think it was about a year in total, but because he had to go and find a doctor and then start protocols, and so there was time period between the doctor that told him he had ALS and wanted to put him on meds, and then finding another doctor and then going to see him and starting the protocols.
Well, what's amazing to me is that he had the wherewithal to know that he had to find somebody who believed.
Yes.
That would believe with him. There's this incredible story about Wayne Dyer, who was trying to get to a conference, and he had a flight delay, and he was stuck. And every time they tried to reroute him, it wasn't going to get him in time to be on stage to give his keynote address. And the woman who was helping him said, "I'm sorry, but I just can't find anything that'll do it." And he said in that moment, "Would it be possible that I could work with somebody who believes it could be possible?" Yeah. And he got a different person to help him with the rebooking. And they found the most obscure thing where they routed him from here, there, and otherwhere, but they got him there because two people believed and worked together on what they believed was a possible outcome. So I was thinking about that when you told me that story about first thing he did was to get a doctor who believed,
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's so cool. And so then that is just prompting in my mind, how do you screen a doctor to know if they believe?
I know, right? I know, because my doctor was adamant that he wanted to give me sleeping pills and depression pills. And I'm like, I just don't want it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I do not want medication. Mm-hmm. And he said, I need to see you every month to make sure you're still alive and you're doing okay. And I did. I went back to see him, but every time I'm like, I do not want medication. I will heal this. I don't know how, but I know I will.
Very interesting. So have you come up with like a formula or things that have to be present for healing to occur?
Yes, from my own healing and reading all the people who've sent me their own healing as well, I've identified 4 pillars. We have the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And the physical is what most people think about when they're thinking of starting a healing journey. Change and eat nourishing food and stay hydrated and get a good night's sleep and do some exercise, maybe some deep breathing exercises. And that's where most people think healing is. But it's so much more than that. We have to look at the mental aspects of it. And for me, I had to calm my mind down because it was racing with obtrusive thoughts. So mindfulness and meditation will help on the mental aspects, but also flip that round and encourage your brain to do things that tax it. So something like learning a new skill or a new language or doing crosswords. The emotional, which I didn't know I needed to deal with until I trained as a coach, is healing your past. You have to heal your past to be able to let go and forgive those people who've done you harm. And we can do that by understanding that we all do what we do with the skills and knowledge we've got at that time that we're doing it. And people did to us what they thought was maybe in our best interest, but those words resonated with us at a different level to how that person maybe thought they said them, or they've harmed us in some way, but we don't know what kind of a childhood or upbringing or responsibility that person had. So if we can heal our past, and the spiritual aspect of it is about connection. It's about connection to that little voice inside us, whether we call that inner wisdom, our higher self, God, the universe, the angels. It doesn't matter the name we give it, but we need to reconnect with it because many of us have lost that connection. And that inner voice, our inner voice, is there purely for us. It looks out for us. So it's about reconnecting to that. If we can cover all of those 4 pillars and address them all, we can heal ourselves. But we have to have that belief as well on top of covering those 4 pillars that we can heal. And not everybody believes they can heal. And if you'd have asked me before somebody challenged me about taking pharmaceuticals at home, I would have never have said my body can heal itself. I'm like, no, I need a pill and a doctor. Now I'm like, no, my body heals now. I just need to support it. It's the symptoms are messages. So what are those messages trying to tell me? And then when I understand that, I can heal.
Okay, so it's the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. Yeah. And so when you're working with a client, do you work on all 4?
Yes, I do. I get them to give me an overview of their problem, and then I get them to go back and give me a history. And then I'll ask some questions about things that they might have raised in their history and get them to identify those, because our symptoms can be part of all 4 pillars, but actually it can be a problem just in 1 pillar. And we could be already addressing 3 pillars, but because we've got an issue in 1 pillar only, it will raise problems. So it's about understanding that healing is holistic. We need to look at our body as a whole. Every system is linked to every other system. So if I can help them to address the point that's missing or the point in their health that needs addressing and take them to that, then they can have rapid healing.
Amazing. So Sarah, what questions should I have asked you that I didn't that would help our listeners understand what holistic healing is and what they should consider for themselves?
Maybe, why don't doctors know this?
All right. And why don't doctors know this?
Because sadly, doctors' training is funded by pharmaceutical companies. And so they are trained to identify symptoms, group them together, give them a name so we get a diagnosis, and then find a medication or more than one medication that goes with that diagnosis, and then hand us that diagnosis, the medication, a prognosis, what we're going to expect, how long our life's going to be, what problems we're going to have. And when they give us all of that, we take that on board and we own it in the main. Unless, like Mr. Kim Cherry with the ALS, he said, no, I'm not accepting that diagnosis. But he's one of very few people. Most people accept a diagnosis because the doctor is a person of authority. And people look up to that authority. So when we understand that doctors don't understand nutrition, they get one day out of maybe 7 years training on nutrition. So it's not the doctor's fault, it's the system's fault. So if we can understand that the doctor is only putting our symptoms together and coming up with a name from what he's been taught and then identifying a pill that goes with that diagnosis, if we can understand that, we can step outside of that paradigm and go, what is my body telling me? Why do I need to express this symptom in my body? What is underpinning that I need to address?
Very, very nice. Very interesting. Sarah, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the KTS Success Factor podcast for women. If you like what you are hearing, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate us, and leave a review. And if you would like more information on how we can help women in your organization to thrive, then go to www.sarahebrown.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, read show notes and learn more about our podcast guests, read my blog, browse through the books, or contact us for a chat. Goodbye for now.